5 facts that Jesus shared about Satan that many do not know. Number 1. A liar and the father of lies. John chapter 8 verse 44. You are of your father the devil, and it is your will to practice the desires which are characteristic of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning, and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Biblical scholars generally agree that Lucifer was in charge of orchestrating heaven's worship. Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 14 to 16 says, I ordained and anointed you as the mighty angelic guardian. You had access to the holy mountain of God and walked among the stones of fire. You were blameless in all you did from the day you were created until the day evil was found in you. Your rich commerce led you to violence, and you sinned. So I banished you in disgrace from the mountain of God. I expelled you, O mighty guardian, from your place among the stones of fire. Let's take a moment to examine a fascinating phrase that appears in this passage: rich commerce. Some translations, such as the New King James Version, use the term trading, which in Hebrew means to go up and down as a talebearer, agitator, one with a secret, or an underhanded agitation. In our day, we call this campaigning or lobbying, and this is how Lucifer alienated the angels' loyalty, by going back and forth, declaring in effect how beautiful and intelligent he was, and how fit he was to be a better ruler than God. He'd probably claim that God undervalued them, and that by joining him, Lucifer, he would give them a much higher position in his kingdom than they had in God's kingdom at the time. Flattery and lies are Lucifer's way of doing things. No wonder it's written that he is the father of lies. Number 2. A murderer. John chapter 8 verse 44. Satan cannot truly give life. He brings only death. He caused the spiritual death of angels and humanity in Eden. Christ said, he was a murderer from the beginning, probably referring to all that happened in Genesis 3 and 4, including the murder of Abel. Satan retains a great position over men and angels. But with his perverted character as a liar and murderer, he continues sinning and opposing God. God limits his place and power in the universe. Number 3. He said that he saw him fallen from heaven. In Luke chapter 10 verse 18, Jesus says, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. The context of these words is the return of the 70 disciples that Jesus had sent out to evangelize and prepare his way to Jerusalem. As the 70 returned from their assignment, they were delighted to learn that even the demons had been subjugated to them. Jesus said to them, I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning. In referencing Satan's fall from heaven, Jesus most likely had in mind Isaiah chapter 14. Isaiah chapter 14 verses 12 to 14. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, light bringer, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the ground, you who have weakened the nations, king of Babylon. But you said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the remote parts of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Lucifer had lifted himself in his pride, but God had thrown him out of his original place in heaven. Jesus' statement in Luke chapter 10 verse 18 speaks of Jesus' pre-existence and the Lord's defeat over the power of Satan in a general sense. He said to them, I watched Satan fall from heaven like a flash of lightning. The Bible describes how Christians should be aware of Satan's schemes. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. Number 4. That he has a kingdom. Matthew chapter 12, verse 26. Jesus was driving out a demon, and when the demon left, the Bible tells us that the crowd was amazed. But some of them said, "By Beelzebul, the prince of demons, he is driving out demons." Others tested him by asking for a sign from heaven. Luke chapter 11, verses 14 to 16. Others insisted on a sign from heaven to prove his authority, as if his miracles weren't enough. Luke chapter 11, verses 17 to 23. Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Any kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and a house divided against itself will fall. If Satan is divided against himself, how can his kingdom stand? I say this because you claim that I drive out demons by Beelzebul. Now if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your followers drive them out? So then, they will be your judges. But if I drive out demons by the finger of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. When a strong man fully armed guards his own house, his possessions are safe. But when someone stronger attacks and overpowers him, he takes away the armor in which the man trusted and divides up his plunder. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters." Jesus responded by pointing out how absurd their accusations were. If Satan drove out his own demons, he would be working against himself. The devil will be defeated one day, but not because he defeats himself. He will be defeated at the hands of King Jesus. Though Satan had bound people, Jesus demonstrated his superiority by defeating his evil forces, releasing captives, and dividing Satan's plunder. When it comes to Jesus Christ, there can be no neutrality. He's either the Messiah or Satan, but he can't just be a teacher or a miracle worker. They argue with Jesus about the source of his miraculous power, believing it comes from Satan. First, some assign his work to Beelzebub. This name, probably originally referring to a pagan god, designated him as Lord of the Flies. This questioning prevents making a commitment to Jesus, while admitting that there is something happening that requires reflection. Perhaps their testing of Jesus is in line with what God's people were instructed to do with prophets in the Old Testament. That also implies that Jesus works against Satan rather than with him. The forces that plague humans are defeated by Jesus. That is why opposing Jesus means being against him and being the source of scattering. With this final remark, Jesus emphasizes how important the decision about him is. In this cosmic battle, there are only two sides, and the choice of allies is critical. Jesus explains his ministry through miracles, which serve as a window into God's support and presence. This passage is like removing the blinds to reveal the divine perspective of Jesus' ministry. Though his kingdom will be powerfully visible one day when he returns, Jesus has gathered around himself a community of redeemed people who demonstrate the transformation in real life his victory paved the way for. Number 5. That evil men are his sons. Matthew chapter 13, verse 38. Matthew chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. Jesus gave them another parable to consider, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds resembling wheat among the wheat, and went away. So when the plants sprouted and formed grain, the weeds appeared also. The servants of the owner came to him and said, 'Sir, Did you not sow good seed in your field? Then how does it have weeds in it?" He replied to them, "An enemy has done this." The servants asked him, "Then, do you want us to go and pull them out?" But he said, "No, because as you pull out the weeds, you may uproot the weed with them. Let them grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, 'First gather the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" Matthew chapter 13, verses 36 to 38. Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, saying, "Explain clearly to us the parable of the weeds in the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, and the field is the world. And as for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom, and the weeds are the sons of the evil one." Satan is referred to as the god of this age, and he rules over the world and its systems, but his power will not last forever. The angel Michael opposes him,